guys, welcome to this week's Friday Waffle. It's Friday again at last. Weather-wise, it's kind of overcast and not very nice. I mean, the weather the last wee while has just been mental. We had a sort of really nice week, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. Really nice weather, quite warm. And then just this last couple of weeks, it's been back to cold. It actually feels like it's kind of returned to winter again. We're almost into May as well, for goodness sake. So anyway, I hope you've all had a decent week. I've had quite a busy week again, as usual. I was at my guitar club on Wednesday. What else have I been up to? I can't think. Don't know, can't remember what I've been up to. From a gaming perspective, have I been doing anything? I've been playing my PC Engine Duo, which I have yet to make a video of. I'm planning to do that probably next week. It's the PC Engine Duo. It's a CD. It's a PC Engine with the CD built into it, so you can play like the Hue card games and also CD games. I've had it for about a week, maybe a couple of weeks now actually. It's a really good machine, so I'm planning to do a sort of look at video next week. That's been it really. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to be getting an early night. After I get this video finished, I'm going to be getting it uploaded and then get to my bed, because tomorrow morning I need to leave the house about 4:15 in the morning and pick up a couple of mates and drive to Glasgow. It's I've got an ultra race starting in Mulgai in Glasgow. It's 53 miles long, which now I've done the race 4 times before, but I've not done it for 2 years, and because of the sort of the issues I've had with my asthma, which I hopefully, touch wood, I'm starting to get on top of. I've not done it for 2 years, so my training has been rubbish. Quite frankly, the training has just not been what it should be. But I'm hoping that I can dig in deep and just grind it out and get to the finish, because I've got the bigger one, the full West Highland Way race in June, a couple of months away, and I know that if I stand any chance of doing that one, I need to finish the race tomorrow. So there's a bit of pressure. I mean, the only pressure is on by myself. There is a bit of pressure on myself to finish it. I'm not, anyone that does these races, you don't start it to not finish it, but I'll give it my best, and that's all I can possibly do. So I'm going to batter on with this waffle, guys. I don't have any my own subjects to talk about this week. I've got absolutely tons of questions, so I'm just going to batter straight into them. So before I start, thank you very much to everybody that's taking the time to ask some questions. So to kick things off, Mr. Carol Todd, there have been some recent planned releases of classic computers using modern hardware, such as the C64 Reloaded. Wasn't aware of that one, C64 Reloaded. I'll need to check that one out. The Spectrum Next and the Amiga Reloaded. What do you think about them? Do you think they are a good addition to the marketplace, or do you think you should just use original hardware? And if you could choose any of the systems to be released using modern hardware, what would you choose? I wasn't even aware of the C64 Reloaded or the Amiga one. I'm interested to see what that is. I'm aware of the Spectrum Next. I know Jim Bagley's been doing quite a bit on it. It looks really nice. Personally, I'm not going to, well, I'm saying that now, I'm not going to buy any of these ones at the moment for a couple of reasons. I've got multiple Spectrums as it is. The Spectrum, the Just Specky, which I've bought, was a brand new Spectrum motherboard, and it's got the, it's got the SD card in it, it's got the built-in joystick port, it's got the VGA out. The only thing that this Just Specky doesn't do, it's just a Spectrum. It runs games exactly the same speed. It's got the same memory as a Spectrum. I think it's got 128, so it's a 128K Spectrum. The thing about these new machines, like the Spectrum Next, it's got, I don't know, is it 7 mega memory? I think it's twice as fast as the normal Spectrum. Personally, for me, that doesn't really appeal to me, because I tend not to think of that as being a Spectrum. It's a new computer. Yeah, now I know the Spectrum Next is going to be fully compatible with all existing Spectrum software, and I totally get why there's such a big interest. I mean, it's a Kickstarter project, and I think it reached the target in a couple of days. So I mean, it's going to do well, and I think it does look a really nice machine. But I'm not interested in it at the moment. I might get one, further down the line if it comes down in price. But to me, it's a new machine, and I'm all about original machines, if that makes any sense. So I kind of think of the Spectrum Next as having as much in common with a real Spectrum as, say, the Vega or a PC running an emulator, if that makes any sense. I don't see it as being the next Spectrum, but I think I'm in a minority thinking like that. I mean, I think it's going to be a fantastic little computer. Anybody that was into Spectrum will be stupidly excited by it, and it's great. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's fantastic because it's keeping the interest in these old machines alive, and because I've upgraded it, it means you're going to get some really, really nice games getting written for it. I know Jim Bagley has written some games for it already, so I think it's going to be a really nice thing. And the fact that Jim is involved in it, plus there are already there's already a couple of working versions. It's I think you don't have any worries as regards it not coming out. I mean, there's been some sort of bad press about, is it the Vega 2? I don't believe it's even out 6 months past when it should be. So, but yeah, I think the Spectrum Next is going to be a really nice machine. I'm not personally too fussed. I've got what I want. I've got my Just Specky. Been interested to see the C64 Reloaded and the Amiga Reloaded. Yeah, absolutely. I'll need to check that out. So anyway, thanks for your question, Carol. In fact, part 2 of your question. Sorry, there's another part I didn't actually answer. If you could choose any of your systems to be released using modern hardware, what would you choose? You know what? It's kind of, if I own the system, I mean, if I own the system, I'm not really bothered about a new version coming out, because I've got the obvious thing for me would be having a good way to load games. I mean, for example, I read last week, one of my mates actually got it. There's a new device. I'm saying new, it's been out for a wee while, for the Sega Dreamcast. It's a little device. You put an SD card in, it replaces the GD drive, and it basically means you can then put all your games on an SD drive, and it's like almost instant loading. So that's excellent. I love the idea of that. All my other systems, all my kind of floppy disk, cartridge-based systems like the Mega Drive, SNES, BBC, Atari, C64, Spectrum, I've got multi-carts, not multi-carts, they're little flash cart things, SD card things for them. So it means that I've got instant loading. I've got all the games for all these systems. So there's not really a system I would say that I've got that I would want to see a modern version of. Maybe a colour Vectrex, that would be quite nice. But in the main, I've got the original hardware, and I've got a great way to load games. So I'm quite happy with them. I can't think of anything really offhand that I would want to see. But number 2, back in the day, there were several consoles planned and hyped in magazines, but they were never released. For example, a Commodore 65. That just sounds strange saying that. The Konix multi-system, we can't forget that. Amiga with AAA chipset, 3DO Mark II. Is there any unreleased systems that you were looking forward to and would have bought? I don't remember the Commodore 65 being talked about, but I certainly remember the Konix multi-system. I remember seeing pictures of it, and I was never that impressed with it. I thought it looked a bit naff, if I'm honest. But yeah, the Konix multi-system, it was basically a chair that you could, and it had built into it, you could mount your TV in the front, and you could change the controls, so you could have like a steering wheel for a racing car game. You could change it to like a, what do you call it? like handlebars for a bike game. You could change it to a kind of yoke for like sort of Star Wars types games. So you could basically change it was basically a fancy controller, but the hardware was part of it as well. It looked super ambitious, and ultimately it turned out to be just too ambitious. It never ever got into the marketplace. I mean, Jeff Minter, he programmed, was it Attack of the Mutant Camels for it, or was it Revenge of the Mutant? I think it was Attack of the Mutant Camels. There is a way to play it. There is an emulator for the Conix, and I'm sure you can download that game by Jeff. But yeah, it looked mental. It just looked like nothing we'd seen before. I remember when I first read about it, I actually thought it was an April Fool's joke. Would I have bought one? I don't know. It just looked, to me, it looked that ridiculous, and I think the price they were touting at the time was just, ridiculous. But ultimately, it proved to be too ridiculous because it never ever got released. There is some websites that tell you all about the history of it. It's actually quite interesting, so I do suggest you go and check it out. So I can't think of any unreleased system that I was actually looking forward to, and it never got a release. But anyway, listen, Carol, thank you for your questions, Squire. It's always appreciated. Lurch 6664441. What's the strangest computer or console peripheral add-on you know about? The strangest console peripheral. I mean, there was obviously the Wonder Glove for the NES. You could supposedly control it using this kind of glove thing. Strangest peripheral. I mean, Nintendo had a few weird and wacky ones. I mean, they had the drums for Congo Bongo. Is that what it was called? Donkey Konga, I think it was called. Then there was also the Samba, whatever it was called, the maracas. They had that. I think the most bizarre one that I actually do own, but I'm not going up to the loft to get it out. And it was on the ColecoVision. There's a game called Rocky, which was based on the film. It was a boxing game. And with that game, you got these kind of, there was two of them. In fact, no, I'm talking bollocks. You only had, I'm thinking virtual reality there. No, you only had one of them. But it was like a kind of throttle. You held it like that, and you used your thumb to control. I'll try and put a picture of it, up there, see if I can find one. But it was quite a bizarre controller. I do have two of them, and I did try them with Rocky, and they weren't that great. Might be down to the fact that they're about 30, 40 years old. That's probably part and parcel of it. But yeah, that was quite a weird and wonderful one. I'm trying to think of anything else. I mean, there's been various ones over the years. Like I say, the drums, the maracas. The most outrageous control system was is it Battle Commander or something it's called? It's a game for the Xbox, the original. And it was, I think it's something like £100 to buy or £200 to buy. And this thing is it's a huge, big, massive control panel all for this one game. I mean, it goes for silly money on eBay purely and simply because there's so few of them out there. But I think it cost a couple £100, maybe £150 to buy at the time. But yeah, I could imagine buying that and thinking, bloody hell, what am I going to do with this? But aye, another good question. So anyway, thank you very much, Squire, for that. Panther UK, how do you rate the Streets of Rage Bare Knuckle series of games on the Mega Drive? I personally still think Streets of Rage 2 is probably the best, or at least my favourite console game of all time. Music, graphics and playability is all there, second only to the mighty Final Fight in the arcade. Streets of Rage, it's not a game I've particularly played, and again, I know that's probably pretty bad. The problem I've got is I've just got so many systems. I've got so many systems, so many games to play that I can be very, very picky about what games I have played. I have played Streets of Rage, not for any length of time, and it is on my bucket list to actually complete it. I mean, it's an astonishing looking game. When you think it's on the Mega Drive, it's almost as good as Final Fight. I mean, I can't really talk too much on the playability because I haven't played it to any degree, but I do know that Streets of Rage 2 is generally regarded as probably the best one, and the music is meant to be astonishing. Bare Knuckles, was that? I'm not aware of that game. Is that a similar game to Streets of Rage, or was that just a name change or something for it? I'm not quite sure. But yeah, I says it's a lovely game. It really is. You know, to be done in the humble Mega Drive is quite an achievement. Excuse me. And you just finish off here saying, wasn't Pajama-Rama called a collect 'em up? I think I was talking about that in one of my one of my 8-bit face-off kerfuffles. I think Pajama-Rama was called a graphic adventure. Arcade adventure. I think it was Doug that told me that. Arcade adventure. That's basically an adventure game, but you actually control a character rather than typing commands into using the keyboard. So yeah. But anyway, listen, thank you very much for your questions again, mate. Right, next up is Batman. As most of us retro gamers started gaming in the 80s and are now in our 30s, 30s, 40s and 50s, how much longer will we still be enjoying the old classics? How playable and enjoyable will these games be in another 30 years? I think they're going to be just as playable, Doug. I mean, I'm still playing games which are more than 30 years old. I mean, the Spectrum was 35 years old last week, I think it was. And I still love these games, so I don't see anything changing in another 30 years' time. Will I still be alive in another 30 years' time? Who knows? I'll be almost 80 years old. That is terrifying, it really is. But yeah, I mean, a good game is a good game regardless of how old it is. In fact, you're just talking about that very issue there. Or is playable regardless of the passing of time? Absolutely, a game doesn't suddenly get unplayable. I think what does happen, I mean, you can play a game. There can be games that you look at, or sorry, the games that you fondly remember back in the day, and you revisit them, and you realise that they're actually pretty shit, but you still want to play them because you've got the nostalgia attached to it. You know, you've got the happy times, the happy memories of playing games. But if I'm honest, there's not many games on 8-bit computers that I would actually sit and play properly, because I just think they're not worthy of the time. They're maybe really good back in the day, but there's better games out there now. But saying that, there's still some cracking games that I do play on a regular basis. But I do think a good game is a good game regardless of, it might sort of, the playability can never deteriorate. The graphics may not age particularly well, but yeah. How long will us old gaming codgers be able to get away with it? Will these games still be appreciated like classic pop rock music is today, or will they be seen like Victorian penny arcade machines are seen now, i.e. nothing more than museum curiosities with only a couple of old crumbly guys preserving them for heritage purposes? Oh, bloody hell, Bat, you're making me feel about 96. Yeah, I mean, I think probably once, I mean, for example, my daughter, she loves video games. I've shown her a few 8-bit games, but she'll never play them. And I think probably once our generation disappear to the great arcade in the sky, I think you'll find most of the classic 8-bit games will disappear into mist of time. Yeah, you're always going to get, I don't know, Manic Miner. I'm sure Manic Miner's going to live on. There's some real classic games that are well known, but I think largely, and it's the depressing thing, I think largely most of these games will eventually disappear, and that's going to happen to all these games eventually. I really don't see anyone in 30 years' time digging out Paradroid. I just don't think it's going to happen, unless, of course, their mum and dads played them and they showed them the games, and I mean, I've got this big collection of stuff here. When I go, will my daughter want to take it over? Probably not. I think between my wife and my daughter, they'll probably get rid of everything. I mean, I don't think they're interested in, my daughter plays the PlayStation 4, but that's about it, and that's a sad reality. Yeah, what else are we saying here? Will we still be enjoying games that are nearly 70 years old in the future? Oh my god, I'm waiting to slip my wrist now. I certainly feel my age, and I feel even older after reading that. But yeah, like I said, as long as I can see the screen and my hands still work, I'll still be playing these games, definitely. Or is time just a relative man-made concept that I've become far too obsessed with as I contemplate my mortality? Oh God, I've been doing the same thing. A bit long-winded, I know, but of all the things I've given a fair bit of thought to recently, and your views would be appreciated. Well, hopefully I've done my best to answer that, but I think a good game is always a good game. Right, moving on. I'm going to have a wee drink of my tea while I just read this. Right, David Lester Tom, thank you very much, David. Where do you get your games? I presume where do you buy your games? Places like Game are expensive and don't cater for retro. CEX has the second-hand market sewn up, but the retro prices aren't exactly cheap. eBay is hit or miss in my opinion and can be a good source for deals, but it's chock full of resellers. Yeah, I think you're sadly right actually. And charity shop retro gaming hunting appears to be a thing of the past. Me, I'm all over the card boot sales like a rash, but for every cheap deal there's a seller whose prices are based on, well, it's this price on eBay. Yeah, for old stuff, I mean, presumably we're talking about kind of retro stuff, Spectrum, Mega Drive. It's buying from, yeah, as you say, CEX. Their prices are way inflated. They really are. I mean, I saw like a SNES for over £100, totally overpriced. The thing is these systems become rarer, they become less of them, then prices are going to go up. I mean, prices for retros just been climbing steadily to the point that it is hard. I don't think you'll ever get an out-and-out bargain anymore. I mean, I've picked up some stuff over the years. I mean, the best example is Steve Benway. If you watch this channel, I dare say you watch Steve Benway's channel. Steve has got an amazing collection of systems, and on his mission, he says that he was collecting systems in the 90s, and back in the 90s I was not remotely interested in buying a Commodore 64 or a Spectrum. I couldn't care less. I was all about getting more memory for my PC and getting a better monitor or a better graphics card. So Steve got all these bargains. I mean, he's got a Jupiter Ace which he got for like pennies. Bargains like that on eBay are a thing in the past. You just don't get bargains anymore, sadly. I mean, the thing is, yeah, there's some ridiculous prices going on. I mean, I've got an Atari 800 there, and just out of curiosity, I thought I'll see how much these are going for. And there's one currently selling. It's buy it now, £499, which is just absolute bullshit. And needless to say, it's not actually sold as yet. I don't think anyone in their right mind would pay £500 for a computer. I mean, I got that about 2 years ago, along with an Atari 400 plus a disk drive plus loads of games for £80. You know what I mean? I wouldn't get that deal nowadays. I think the only way you'd get a deal like that would be if somebody who had no concept of prices, maybe, you know, somebody's parents, whatever, are going through their loft and they find their son's Spectrum and they think, oh, that's not worth anything, I'll sell it. But now everybody thinks that any old system, any game is worth a fortune, and so prices, you just can't get a bargain anymore. You'll pay. I mean, if you go to an auction, you'll pay for what the demand is. But sadly, because as the sort of interest in this hobby is increasing, sellers know that, and they're now asking too much for it. But yeah, it's one of these unfortunate things. But you know, it's the way of the world, unfortunately. So you're asking where I get my games. I tend not to buy any like old games, retro games. I mean, all my systems that I've got, as I mentioned earlier on, all my systems I've got, like my Mega Drive, my Spectrum, my Commodore 64, I've got SD cards. All the software is on these, so I'm not a collector per se. I'm quite happy to play a game that's on a flash card, an Everdrive cartridge. So I generally don't go out and buy retro games. I mean, I've bought the odd one now and again. What have I bought? I mean, I bought Gradius 5 for the PlayStation 2, and I got that at one of the Play Expo things in Glasgow. if I was going to look for a game, I would go to eBay probably. As you say, CEX. CEX are great. C for Xbox 360, PlayStation 3. You get that's the best place to get them, CEX. But as far as classic systems, I think your best bet is to either go into one of these Facebook retro for sale type pages, or else just take your chance on eBay. You will certainly pay more for it than you would have maybe 10 years ago or 5 years ago, but you know that's just the way of the world, unfortunately. And yeah, you're talking about car boot sales. I think charity shops possibly, you might be lucky, you know, to pick up something, but again, I think there's a lot of people who go, they scour all these places and hoover up all the bargains. You're talking about car boot sales. I mean, I got about 5 years ago. I got, what was it? I think it was 2 Mega Drives, a Mega CD, plus stacks of games for something like 40 quid. Again, that was 5 years ago. I don't think you'd get that, unfortunately, now. So, anyway, listen, thank you, David. I appreciate your questions, mate. Right, 2 to go, guys, and then I'm off to my bed. Down the rabbit hole, Kev. Thanks, Kev, for the Friday Waffle. Hi, Alan. A podcast host I listened to mentioned 3 retro video games that blew him away when they came out originally, and I was wondering which ones you would list. As an example, he listed Donkey Kong and the ColecoVision. Yeah, because back when that came out, we'd never thought we would see arcade accurate recreations on a home console, and I agree with him that Coleco Donkey Kong was astounding back then. What games blew you away? Well, one that I mentioned before, and it would be International Soccer on the Commodore 64. I owned a C64 at that point, and most of the games that I had were, you know, they were alright at best and bloody awful at worst. And then I saw a review, I think it was Computer and Video Games, of International Soccer, and I think it got 9 out of 10, something like that, or it might have even got 10 out of 10, and it just looked incredible. You know, there was a picture of this, all these players running about chasing a ball. There was a picture of the Queen with her crown on, doing a presentation with a cup. It just looked amazing. So I went up to John Menzies and I bought it, and it literally blew me away. I couldn't believe that a game could look that good. Yeah, looking at it now, it definitely aged. It's not a particularly good football game, but back in 1983, I was amazed that a game could look so good. So that was one of the early ones. A game that blew me away. Let me think. Okay, on the Atari ST, a game that blew me away would be Arkanoid. Arkanoid. My mate I was wanting to buy an Atari ST, but I didn't have the money at that point. My mate bought one before me, and he kept it as a surprise, and he invited me up to his house, and he told me, go into his bedroom, and when I walked in, there was this computer running Arkanoid, and I just couldn't believe how good this game looked. It was arcade perfect. I know it's an old cliche that we use a lot, but it really was. I mean, going from an 8-bit computer with limited colours and blocky graphics to this thing that just looked exactly like an arcade game. Plus, it used the mouse for controls. It was just absolutely sublime. So that was the very, very first 16-bit game that I played. Indeed, it was the first one I then went on to buy when I got my Atari ST. So yeah, there was that one. There was International Soccer on the C64, Arkanoid on the Atari ST, and probably, I mean, there's so many landmark games, Kev. There really were. As you know yourself, it's hard to try and narrow it down. Probably Ridge Racer on the PlayStation 1. It was the arcade game brought home. Here was this stunning looking game, and I was playing it on my TV, you know, a 32-inch TV. It just looked amazing. And to be able to play that in the comfort of my own living room was just incredible. and even now it still plays really well. So yeah, that's going to be my third game, Kev. Ridge Racer on the PlayStation. Where are we? Second question, if you inherited an arcade, what games would you have in it? Obviously your favourite games, but would you have any weird cabinets? What games would I have? Blimey, let me think. I'd have an Atari ST, shut up Alan. I would have Robotron, I'd have Defender, I'd have Space Invaders, I would have Terra Cresta, I would have 1942, I would have Sit Down Star Wars, I'd have Rolling Thunder, I would have Track and Field, I'd have Hypersports. Any obscure games? I'm trying to think. Any obscure games? Is there any obscure games that I like? I can't think of any offhand, Kev. Probably have a Space Harrier, a hydraulic Space Harrier, plus a hydraulic Outrun. Because they are just amazing. The same with Power Drift. I think that was hydraulic as well. Have one of these. I also like, what was that game? It's not a particularly good game that I didn't like. WEC Le Mans, and it had you were actually sitting in this car with the screen in front of you, and the whole thing spun 360 degrees. Yeah, it wasn't a particularly good game, but it was quite mental to actually watch people playing it. Any obscure games? Like I said, I think Track and Field, there's very few. I've not seen an original Track and Field arcade game for a long, long time. Love to see that. Galaxian as well, that would absolutely have to be in there. So, yeah, I think that would be it, Kev. Plenty others, obviously, but these would be my sort of main ones. Thirdly, some games are locked to a single console, and unless you have that machine, you can never play them. Which game would you love to play but can't because you don't own the hardware? For me, that game is Final Fight Revenge for the Sega Saturn. Yeah, I remember you mentioning. One of my dogs has just let off, and it is absolutely stinking. Oh man, that is awful. Yeah, what am I talking about? A game that I would love to play. You know what? It sounds really, I was going to say arrogant, but right now, I don't think there's any game that I don't own the hardware for now. I suppose some of the VR stuff, I'd like to try some of the VR stuff. Some of the games that Bankoki has put up look amazing. I'd love to try them. But as far as other systems, I've pretty much got all the hardware. I mean, all the arcade games are covered with my main cab and my little retro Pi cab that I built. And I've got all other systems, Kev, so I can't think of any system that I don't have that there's a particular game I want to play. I mean, I've got my Vectrex. I'm kind of spoiled, I know I am. So I can't think any one particular game. I mean, maybe a year ago there would have been games that I'd love to have played and I didn't own the system, but I do now. So even the ColecoVision, I own a ColecoVision. I loved Donkey Kong. You know, that was an amazing conversion. So I can't think of any systems offhand, Kev, that I would like to, that I don't own the system. Sorry, to play the game. Yeah, and you're talking about Final Fight Revenge for the Sega Saturn. Yeah, I know you've always liked that one. You need to get yourself a Sega Saturn. I mean, they're not particularly expensive, so go and get yourself one, Kev. Anyway, Kev, listen, thank you for your questions. It is very much appreciated. And I've got one last batch to go through here. Mr. Doug Scullery. Again, thank you, Doug. What do you consider to be the most impressive next generation jump? For example, PS2 to PS3, C64 Amiga, or even ZX81 Spectrum. I've never really thought that the jump from PlayStation to PlayStation 2 was quite significant, but I've never felt that the jump since then has been that much. I mean, some of the games in the PlayStation 2 look incredible. Then you've got the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 4. I think the big difference with games in these systems now is just the attention to detail, maybe the shadows or the if you go up close to a tree, you'll now see the leaves rather than a kind of blurred thing. But I think the older I've got and the more systems that come out, that jump lessens. I think for me, the biggest jump I would say was going from the Commodore 64 to the 16-bit, the Atari ST, and then latterly the Commodore Amiga. You know, we went from pixelated sprites. I was going to say limited sound. Ironically, the sound in the Commodore 64 I felt was much better than the Atari ST. So when I did upgrade to the Atari ST, as much as the games looked better, it felt like a bit of a backward step. It was like slightly, although it was nice to have the 16-bit, I did miss the sound on the Commodore 64. But then the Amiga made up for that. So I think going from 8-bit computers to the 16-bit, i.e. the Amiga, was the big one. The graphics just looked incredible. It could do stuff that the 8-bits could never do. So I would say, Doug, that was probably the biggest kind of jump for me. Which had the biggest wow factor at the time and the biggest impact in the games industry? The biggest wow factor at the time? Again, I think probably I would probably say the Commodore Amiga, because, you know, as well as being able to play two-dimensional games, whatever, this had all these specialist chips. It had amazing colour, amazing graphics. It could multitask. Not that anybody multitasks in it anyway. The sound was to die for, and we could now play games. It introduced polygon graphics. So we're playing stuff like Starglider 2, what else? Elite obviously looked a lot better. Some of the flight simulators, I mean the original Flight Simulator was an awesome game. So yeah, we could suddenly play all these amazing games. I suppose when the PlayStation came along, that opened up things even more. But I would say the 16-bit introduction, the 16-bit computers, really, it was a big leap. I'm not a programmer, so I'm not talking from a programming point of view. I'm just a consumer who likes to play video games. Maybe programmers might disagree with me, but me personally, I think the jump from 8-bit to 16-bit, I think the Amiga really opened up the industry. It just let people see just what could be done, you know. And secondly, from Doug, here's a follow-up question. What were your biggest disappointments regarding gaming hardware, especially something you believed was going to be amazing but turned out to be crap? Mine's is a funny one. Remember that handheld Astro Wars from about 1981? I used to salivate over the photos in the Argos catalogue showing Galaxian-style sprites dive-bombing you at an angle. I was convinced it was a Galaxian machine in miniature, complete with pixel-perfect smooth graphics. What a shocker when I finally got to play one and realised it was a bog-standard LED blinkfest with a frigging magnifying glass stuck over the display. Sick as a parrot. You know what, Doug? I'm actually quite glad to hear you say that, because that was kind of my impression of it as well. I mean, it did look amazing, but even back in 1981, I got bored quite quickly playing it. It did look nice, but ultimately it was very limited, and I did get bored at it quite quick. In fact, about maybe 3-4 years ago, I started collecting a lot of these LCD games, and I ended up, I don't know, maybe 50 different systems. I've since sold them because I realised that even stuff like Astro Wars, you played it for a couple of minutes. That was it. That's about as much as I could actually muster with that game. So I always thought, I was going to say it's overrated. It's maybe not fair because, you know, it was 1981 technology. But it's definitely a case of rose-coloured spectacles. You maybe think back and think, oh, it was amazing. You look at it now, you realise how unamazing it is. But for the time, it did look nice. But yeah, I'm with you, mate. I was slightly disappointed with it. I did get bored quite quickly with it. But yeah, you're asking me about, was there any hardware that I was really looking forward to getting and then ultimately I was disappointed? I think a couple of them, both Nintendo. The first one was the Game Boy Advance. It looked incredible, the games looked incredible, and I bought one pretty much on release, and I quickly realised that it was wholly unplayable because of the screen. There was no, you could not, unless you were in a bright light, you could hardly actually see what was happening on the screen. And I remember buying it, and I stopped using it pretty quick, so I was disappointed with that. I've now got a backlight fitted to it, and it's an amazing machine. It is a great bit of hardware, but back then there was no such thing as a backlight, and ultimately I was disappointed with it. The other one I would probably say, I was going to say the Nintendo 64. I mean, I got the N64 when it came out, like most people, you know. I was blown away with Mario and Mario Kart, and then that was about it. There was other games came out for it. Was it Turok, Dinosaur Hunter? And I just remember thinking, this isn't that good. I'm not enjoying that. And so I got rid of the N64 quite quick. In fact, I can probably back up what I'm saying, because maybe 4 or 5 years ago I got hold of an N64. I got myself a Everdrive cartridge, and I sold it. It's the one system that I've got that I bought, and I got rid of it because I realised I had no interest in playing any of the games. I tried to play some of them, and I just felt that games, they didn't play well. They just looked terrible. Maybe it's because of the LCD technology that you would use it on, but I was disappointed with the N64, I think. So yeah, I think that's probably the two that I can think of. So anyway, listen, Doug, thank you very much for your questions. That is it, guys. That is all the questions. Thanks to everybody. To Carol, Lurch, Panther, Bat, David, Kev, and Doug. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, just one final thing before I go. I did do a pickup, maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago. The Neo Geo CD that I bought. Now, the reason I got the CD one is because the cartridge-based one you can buy for maybe a couple £100. There was different versions of the Neo Geo cartridge. There was called the MVS, which was basically the hardware arcade, the arcade hardware. Then they brought out a console version for the home called the AES. Now the AES you can buy for not too much money, maybe a couple £100. But the problem you've got is the games are quite literally 3, 4, 5, up to £15,000 for a game. I shit you not. So the cartridges are ridiculous. You'll actually probably pay less for the machine than you will for the cartridges. So that was never going to be an option. The other thing you can do is get a hold of a MVS, which is actually the hardware that goes inside the cabs, and you can get a multi-cart for about 60, 70 quid. But I didn't want to have a bare bones motherboard lying about, so it was never going to happen. However, one of my mates, Brian, he sent me a link and says, what do you think of this? And it's basically some clever person has taken a Neo Geo motherboard and they've consoleized it, i.e. they've put it inside a sort of console, and it's all kind of homemade. And then you can get yourself a cartridge, a multiple cartridge, and play these games. So, guess what I've bought? Yep, here we go. It is this bad boy. Now, I've got to say, this is a complete homemade thing. It's an absolutely gorgeous looking thing. It really, really is. This part here, I'll try and take it out actually if I can. Just need to be careful. Don't want to go ripping it. You know what, doesn't matter, I'm not going to go taking it out. This thing here is the cartridge. Now this was a bright yellow and I actually spray painted it, would you believe, and I stuck a big sticker on it. So this is the console itself here. I mean, that's metal. That is metal. That's wooden underneath. I'm assuming it's even got SNK at the top here. I'm assuming this has been printed with, you know what, one of these 3D printers or something. But at the side here, you've got the power, you've got the on-off switch, you've got like a reset button. There's dip switches here, which I'm not too sure about. At the front, you've got the 2 joysticks, and at the side here, you've got that's the video out, which is SCART, it says, and then plugged into this is 161 games in one. So that is effectively an arcade Neo Geo. I've had a very quick shot of it earlier on today, and I've got to say it is gorgeous. So I'm going to be doing a proper look at video with this. But yeah, that arrived. I didn't arrive. Brian actually ordered one for himself and one for me. So I went through last night and picked it up. So that is my Neo Geo MVS, which stands for multi video system. So that is it, guys. Listen, I'm going to call it a night. It's about after that. It's probably about 8:30. I'm getting off to my bed. I know I look absolutely knackered as it is, and I'm quite tired. I'm going to get off to my bed because I'm up early tomorrow. If there's no videos after this one, you know, it's probably because I've died when I've been out running, but hopefully that won't be the case. I'm not intending to do that. So I hope you have a nice weekend, guys, and as usual, thank you very much to all the continued support that you guys give me. It's always really appreciated. And finally, guys, thank you very much for watching.